learning must, giving level exams first, very important, and time frame I've discussed. Any question on Canada? If not, then I'll move on to other destination. Yes.
I have a question related to the federal skilled worker,
Please.
wherein you have a quota of social worker over there, right? To qualify into the social worker category, since in India, for example, I'm a social worker, right? Okay, we have a trust wherein I act as a volunteer, I act as a social worker over there, and my major profile is I'm an IT professional. That is my job. So now what I mean to say is, if you don't have any salary slip, or if you just have a certificate, a basic certificate that you're working for XYZ trust, and since so many years, the condition they must be having. Canada has a condition for these many hours and these many years you need to work. So if I fulfill those conditions, but I don't have any salary as such, to show them. So do I qualify as per your experience?
No, you don't qualify. By definition, any experience that is to be counted should be a paid experience. By definition. So if you have experience that's not paid, it will not be counted. You come across many of these situations, but you will not be counted. Another interesting thing is, that's something that's possible only in Canada. You have not asked this question, but let me just talk about it anyways. Canada is the only destination where your experience need not be related to your qualification. For example, in a very interesting situation, you could have been an engineer, but you were working in this trust as a social worker, but you were paid. Then, irrespective of your qualification as an engineer, you would have still qualified, because even if you did not get your master's or your bachelor's in social work, you would have still qualified, though you are in an unrelated occupation. So Canada permits you to have unrelated experience to your qualification to be counted as your experience, but your experience must be paid.
And we don't have any degree for social service and all.
No, he doesn't.
No bachelor's,
no
master's.
No. That's what I'm
Work
saying.
experience and your paid work will count.
Your paid work will count. That the qualification that you are talking about, that there you get points for qualification. Okay. Let's say you have bachelor's. I'm giving an example. You have bachelor's in engineering, so that you will get your 20 points because you are a bachelor's. That's separate. Now you say I have worked as 7 years as a social worker. Now you claim your 4 years of 21 points towards experience. Both can be unrelated. Lokesh?
After the qualification and the experience, and say for example during the process when you are applying, say we move from working to maybe like an entrepreneur or some sort of a business, how would that status then
It's very
would that
simple.
affect the applications?
It's so long as you have at least, let's divide this question in two parts. My response is in two parts. First is this, that Canada considers experience during last 10 years. So let's say in last 10 years you have experience that's part work, part as an entrepreneur. So your experience as while you are employed, if it was in last 10 years, you can still claim points. So let's say out of 10 years, 5 years you are an entrepreneur and 5 years you are working. So it is during last 10 years prior to making an application, you can still consider your experience from 2001 to 2005. You can claim points towards it. Part 2 of this answer is, though rare, but in some cases, some instances, depending on the nature of entrepreneurial experience a person has, even an entrepreneurial application can be filed, using his experience, but these days it's becoming more and more difficult under the skill category. So even your entrepreneurial experience can be used as a basis for making a skill application in some instances.
It will not affect the...
No. The fact that you are a recent entrepreneur, the fact that you are a recent entrepreneur, will not mean that you cannot claim your points during the earlier period, and you can comfortably file an application. You can honestly tell them that since last 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever period you are, I'm doing this business. There it is. I'm the proprietor. Here is my current account number. Here is my service tax registration. Whatever the business registration documents are, so you can give that and file your application, talking about your experience while you are employed. No harm at all. See, keep one thing in mind. This is location. Keep one thing in mind. This is something that I always like to talk about. The biggest blunder that I have seen in so many applications over the years is that for no rhyme and reason people hide the facts, where it's not even harming their case. In fact, to be transparent is the best thing that you can do in filing your immigration application. Believe me. If you are clear about what you are filing, be transparent. Give the right supporting documents, and you rest assured your application will be accepted.
Since we're talking about entrepreneurship and everything, if you're working as an independent consultant or freelancer, would that count as a skill cost?
It depends on what kind of independent consultant you are, number one. And number two, it also depends on what kind of supporting documentation you will give. For example, an independent consultant, and there are many independent consultants like this, that you work, you always take payment in cash, you don't file your tax return, you don't have a current account.
No, you raise your invoices on a monthly basis, you have a salary account basically, not a...
No, you can, as an independent consultant, you can raise your invoice, and companies, when they'll pay you, they'll deduct your TDS. For example, as a consultant, you can be paid a commission.
Yeah, you're regular paying your...
So, for instance, you are a regular consultant, and you raise bills, raise invoices, and TDS is deducted, and you have those TDS certificates. That's fine enough. You can count that experience.
We have annual returns based in India.
That's fine.
I even have an international exposure. I was working in US.
That's fine. That's fine.
So we have
so long as this particular experience qualifies in one of the occupations, this particular aspect will not be a hindrance in filing an application. It's fine. Any more questions on Canada? Okay. Canada has, by the way, at this stage, as we talk, my reading of the world situation is that it's ultimately two countries, because still doesn't matter. I mean, we can't make Saudi Arabia our home, we can't make Russia our home. Two countries, because who is going to own the world? Who owns the world right now? Countries that have natural resources own the world right now. Only thing that India is missing right now is oil. We have oil, and we are overnight the wealthiest country and the best doing economy in the world. That's the only thing that's pulling down our economy, the oil. And where a country like Russia has an upper hand, where countries like, even a country like Venezuela, Nigeria, for God's sake, they have oil. Canada and Australia are these two countries that you're not only talking of oil. You're talking of uranium, you're talking of gold, you're talking of diamonds, you're talking of oil. You name the natural resource. Australia has world's biggest natural gas reserve. World's biggest. So these countries are two countries between themselves are the countries that will determine the future of the world. These two countries are looking after the supply side, China and India are the demand side. That's how the world is shaping up for future. We have the population that can consume. They have what will feed the world, what will be produced will be sent to these two countries. That's a shape that the world is taking for future. Because they are very rich in natural resources, and they'll continue to be rich. in natural resources. Canada, for example, has not even explored 1% of their oil. Not even 1%. And country is already self-reliant. Companies already, if I'm not wrong, last time I read, they almost 15% of, they are meeting 15%. I need to check on this fact. But what I understand is, they meet almost 15% of the US oil requirement. Canada. So, we are talking of these two countries as being what they are and what they are going to be, and that is the reason, really speaking, people want to settle down in any of these two countries. That's one of the main reasons. Because that's where they see the future. And if that's the reason for making this decision, I think it's a right decision. Having said that, let's come to part 2 of our discussion. I'll go away for the moment from destinations, and I'll come to another significant aspect of this evening's interaction. It is be realistic. Be realistic about what? Be realistic. If you are qualified for Canada, fine. If you are qualified for Australia, fine. But in case, for example, you don't have the required IELTS score, you are not meeting the occupational requirements, you don't have aptitude for French language, so you can't go for French, you can't go for Quebec. You don't have 7.0 in all 4 factors in IELTS, so you are finding it difficult. There are certain situations under which you can get into Australia with a lower score also, and we're going to be spending a lot of time in Australia after a while. But assume for a moment you don't have that 7.0 in all 4 factors, but you have around 6.5 average, which is quite easy for most of the people to get. So your English language proficiency or your occupation means that you're not qualified for Australia or Canada. Why don't people get realistic and go for options like New Zealand? Go for options like Hong Kong? What's wrong with these two destinations? I'll spend some more time on these two countries also as we proceed forward. But right now what I'm talking about is be realistic. If immigration is what you want to be doing, then look at entire world right now as a destination. Don't limit your if you're not qualified for one or the other reason, whether occupation is not listed or your English skills are not of that standard, then don't just go ahead with another destination. What's wrong with New Zealand?
If you have a time, can you please talk about Singapore and Malaysia?
I've never done anything for Malaysia, but since you have talked about Singapore, okay, I'll briefly spend some time on it. Singapore landed permanent resident visa just closed down. So the scheme has just been discontinued for the moment. So I can talk about it. It's a very limited program. Singapore landed permanent resident visa. It's a very limited program. It used to be a very limited program because it was discontinued just last month for the moment. It was a very limited program which was meant in most of the situations for people who were very highly placed by designation, or they had earned their qualification from top 100 universities in the world. So it's a very high-end program. So while they accepted applications, whosoever wanted to file, but fact of the matter was that majority of those applications were refused simply for the reason that they did not meet the high-end parameter of high-end expectation that they had of people who should be making an application. But in any case, that particular program, they are not accepting new applications right now. That's one. Then for Singapore, there is another program under which people often file an application, but that's not immigration. There's a program called EPEC, but that's just, they give you a 6-month visa, because let's say you go on a tourist visa. So on a tourist visa, you can't give a job interview in Singapore. So you need to be, even if you go, no employer will talk to you. You go on a business visit visa, still they will not give it to you, though you can't give interviews. But if you go on EPC visa, so what you can do is they give you a 6-month visa against which this particular visa you can live in Singapore for those 6 months, give interviews, and if you are selected by any of the employers, then you can apply for your employment months. So that's just a 6-month visa that permits you. But that you don't need a consultant for. You can simply go on to the Manpower website. On the Manpower website, you'll get an EPEC page. So that's actually speaking, that form takes less than 10 minutes to fill up, and they give you a decision in 3 days' time. So you don't need a consultant for that. So EPEC is something, if you feel that you can meet settlement expenses of Singapore for 6 months. It's one of the most expensive places of late. Very expensive, and like you shouldn't be going there unless you can invest around $10,000 while you're looking for a job. So there's a minimum cost you'll be spending over 4 to 5 months, and this at this stage is not the right time. Right now, economies across the world are in kind of a limbo because of this kind of bit of a scary environment. So not advised to go on a temporary visa just to look for a job at this stage, no. Because when you go on a resident visa, you get all the benefits. One is not worried about medical health issues. One is not worried about, even if you don't get a job, you get unemployment allowance. One is not worried about educational, issues for the children. They can be admitted to school. But when you go on a temporary status like this, you don't get any benefit. So you are actually speaking just dipping into your savings and supporting whatever cause you have. Malaysia, I've never done. So as a company also we have never done. So we can't say. The last I heard about Malaysia, they used to have programs for businessmen. They had issued some program for retirement visas. That's last I heard, that you could invest in some properties, a certain amount, and if you invest certain properties in certain amount, they give you what's called retirement visa. But you're not permitted to work against that. The second category that I know about Malaysia is they do basically work permits. But that's mostly meant for unskilled and semi-skilled. I'm personally not aware of a Malaysian program where they issue permanent resident visa to skilled workers the way Canada, Australia and New Zealand does. I'm not aware of it. Anything else?
So can you please discuss Hong Kong at this time? Hong Kong.
Okay. Hong Kong has this I really feel that each one of you devote some time on Hong Kong. Keep in mind, some immediate advantages. All said and done, we love our country, we have our relations and friends here. What's bad about the fact that on any situation you can fly in within 5 hours, 5.5 hours? What's bad about it? It's wonderful. What's bad about the fact that you have weather conditions which are almost similar to Mumbai? They're definitely better than -13, -15, -20 or freezing. If weather is something that you want to address as a one the factors. What's wrong about the fact? In fact, if you do some basic search, it's one of the top 10 destinations in every possible parameter. With every possible parameter, in fact, it's consistently among top 5 in the world, and it's consistently 1 or 2 when it comes to Asia. Is the financial services hub besides Singapore, Hong Kong is the hub for financial services. It's hub of logistics for anything that moves out of move to China. It's hub. It's really speaking on travel tourism front again. Very good. Almost each of the Fortune 500 companies, they have their regional offices in Hong Kong. You do this basic check. Each of the Fortune 500 companies have their office in Hong Kong. Each. So what's wrong with such a destination? Has anyone of you been to Hong Kong? Okay. You have to keep one thing in mind. Hong Kong till 1997 was ruled by Britishers. So they have among the world's best infrastructure. If you go to Hong Kong, believe me, rest of your life you'll never feel like traveling on cab or bus. The metro in Hong Kong is the best in the world. Best in the world. Besides that, infrastructure. In every possible conceivable way, it's the best in the world. You have employment opportunities. You do search at your end. Google in your keywords on the occupation that you belong to, including IT. And you will see for yourself that opportunities are available. They are not asking you to get an IELTS score of 7.0 or 6.5. They're not asking you to give your best of English language scores. Opportunities are available. There's just one negative issue as far as Hong Kong is concerned. I'll explain about the process and procedure also. Only